Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and warm greetings to my respected teacher Dr. Arif sir and all my other learned friends. Under perfectly normal circumstances, I would have loved to give this seminar in front of all my teachers and my students in front of the class. But due regard to the current scenario of this pandemic, it's unfortunate that I have to give it to you in this medium. But nevertheless, I'm very much humbled and grateful to Dr. Arif sir for providing me with this beautiful opportunity to present my interests about this subject to you people. So getting on with what we are here for today, I was asked to give a seminar on any topic of my choice in the subject, human resource management. So into my own subject, my own liking of the subject, I thought I'd shed a light into something that I would most likely prefer everybody to know of. So that would be about recruitment. So moving forward, we need to understand the premise of what we are here for today, human resource management. Now we could shed definitions on what this actually means, but we have to actually understand in layman's term what human resource management actually is. Now for an example, I would give you something called as simple as this, a remote device, an electronic device that is worked on batteries. But how is this possible to be here in front of you? It was possible because 4 M's, which will be presented in front of you right now. Yes, these 4 M's are responsible for anything you take for today. It could be any product or service provided to you. If you are a guy who's going to look to open an organization and to provide a product or to give out a service, it would easily mean that you would have to acquire these 4 M's, which are money, material, machine, and men. And out of all these 4 M's, the one M that is very important and is very much necessary is men. And human resource management is very much enlightened to have their interest in this particular M, which is men. So with that understanding, in an organization, the H in human resource management stands for human, which is nothing but the skilled workforce in an organization. The R refers to the availability of resources in an organization, and M is for management, which is clearly nothing but trying to make the best use and to optimize the available human resources and the workforce, whatever you have, and to optimize the best skills out of the people that are there for the very reason of achieving the company's goals and objectives. That has to be the premise. Moving forward. Of course, HRM is not something very simple as a 3-letter word you just heard, but it's a very long and iterative process, beginning with recruitment. You have recruitment, selection, training, assessing, motivating, compensating, maintaining labor relations, compliance to labor laws, welfare of employees. So when you think of joining a company and trying to give an interview, you just think that you're being called by a company to actually give an interview and they try to pick you up. But that is not that side of the story. You have to understand that there is actually a department that is wholly focused to have their knowledge enlightened towards areas that are very much important and keen for the welfare of the company. And such comes the process. And in this whole process, what we are going to shed very much deep light on today is the first one, the recruitment, which I've chosen for my liking. I'd like to keep this video very short and simple, and I apologize if it's a little bit longer, but moving forward. So recruitment. What is recruitment? It is simple to understand and very easy to think of, which is nothing but is the ability by a company to identify capable applicants for the purpose of employment. And that's the very premise of recruitment. And only when you recruit people, you will be able to do anything further, which is selecting who you want for the company, depending on the skills, and then you could train them if they don't have much, but you could make good use of them. So with recruitment, here comes the first part, which is the process of recruitment. But you should understand anything that has a process and anything that gives you a benefit will also have some kind of a hindrance. And therefore, we come to the second point, which is the influencing factors for such process. But going to the positive side, let's begin with the process of recruitment. The first thing which is under a process is that the recruitment process is basically bifurcated into 2 headings. First is the internal recruitment, and then you have external recruitment. For any company that wants to recruit employees for its functioning, it basically has to think of the first thing as internal recruitment. Why do you think so? Because it's the simplest, most easiest option that the company has at their disposal. You could understand the very meaning when I explain it to you further. The first thing, now you could see that there are five aside each. These options are not exhaustive. There could be n number of options available to the company. I've just picked 5 each of my liking, which I could better explain to you. So beginning, promotion. It's a no-brainer. Everybody knows. So basically, if there is a position that's vacant at the company and the company needs filling, there could be a guy who's been there with loads of experience and is being unused for the skills that he possesses. And hence, he's given a promotion to fill up a vacant position and to stabilize the job force. Moving forward, former employees. There could be employees that could have sworn away from the company for the very reason of a job pay or due to family relations, problems, or anything. But it does not necessarily have to be any kind of way that the employee had gone off due to bad reasons. So former employees can always be called back with the very reason of giving them a goodwill of support and employment promises. A HR manager can try to sway in employees who were once former working for the company, and that is always an option for the company at the disposal. Dependence of deceased employees. This is a pretty much evident option because sometimes there is an employee who has been working there for ages, and sometimes it depends on a hierarchy, like the father, the son, the grandson, everybody or the whole line of that generation tends to work for the same company over the course of years, and hence it's very easy to just point over the next successor of an employee, which turns us to the dependent of a deceased employee. The fourth one is transfer. There could always be a possibility. If it's a big company, there could be branches, and if there are branches, it's not very sure that there could be proper staffing of employees in every branch. So in a branch, there could obviously be a possibility of overstaffing or understaffing. So if your organization, if you're actually lacking at the proper workforce you need, you could look into your own branches where there is a problem of overstaffing, which basically means there are more employees than needed for the work that is being done over there. You can easily transfer the employees to your company, and hence you have an internal recruitment option. Moving forward to the next one is retired employees. This is a very kind of last resort option for the companies under internal recruitment. And why is that so? Because retired employees are retired for a reason, because they are beyond their work abilities is something what's understood. But if you are working in a scenario where you have to work through your kith and kin to get through the work done, it becomes very necessary. Now, to make it a little bit more easier, let me give you an example to make you understand something. Now, example, if I'm a law firm and I'm having a very big case coming into my hands to take care of. Now, for a law firm to work, it has an n number of cases. But if a very big case comes along with their hand, it needs enormous amount of workforce to do the paperwork and to do the attorney work. So for that, if there is an understaffing problem, you could always look to retired employees. Reason number one, why? Because obviously retired basically means they work long number of hours in their company and they have hands-on experience. Okay. Two, it's never a bad option because a retired employee would far worth come work for a pay rather than just sitting at home idle if it's at his disposal. So that is the last resort that the company can resort to if they want. With that, we conclude internal recruitment. Now moving forward to external recruitment. What do we have over here? The first thing, it's easy to understand. Advertisements. You could so easily advertise. For example, a newspaper. There is always a person in any corner of the country who is willing to do work. Why? Because if you take the state of India, we are an overpopulated country and the jobs are very, very less. So if you want to put an ad in a newspaper, there are obviously 10 people who are opening their hands and telling, please take me. So that's the first thing the people resort to, which is advertising for job selecting. Then you have employment exchange. Employment exchange is nothing but a place where you can actually approach them, where people have details of, or you could say resumes of people who have already submitted willing to work for their company, work in any company. So when they approach through such employment exchange, they make the regarding dealing with the people who are required to job and they connect with the companies. So it's sort of an arrangement where you can hire employees without having much fuss thinking about how to recruit people. Next, campus recruitment. This is a very common type of recruitment. For among us college students, it's very much understandable because you could go through this every day thinking that this is something we come through a lot. So campus recruitment is what? There are people in the company, in the HR department, who tell that, okay, we need people such as freshmen who could come and give us a good nod and help in whatever we're doing. So where do you go? freshly graduated people in the colleges. So you go to the colleges, talk to the higher authority and tell them that, okay, we are recruiting people. That's your easiest option. So the person who has the highest ability, or you could say the person who managed to crack the interview and managed to prove himself that, okay, he is somebody who is capable to work in a company like this, he's selected in the campus basis. So moving forward, media. This one has to be something that's even understood by any person who has no knowledge of the subject. Internet, newspapers, radios, television, you can just go out over there and spread your information and the word will spread like fire. And that's how you resort to this decision of media, which is so easily the first and second option you always look to in terms if you want to recruit people. Then you look into walk-in interviews. What is walk-in interviews? It's just simple. People want to recruit and they are calling you. If you want to have prove yourself that you are capable to work in this company, walk in, give it a shot, prove yourself that you can, and you'll be selected. Hopefully we will look to see a future with you in the company. And with that, we conclude external recruitment. And external recruitment and internal recruitment are the two heads under which the process of recruitment is undertaken in the HR department of an organization. So like I told you, anything that is positive also has a negative side to it. So a company who looks to recruit people also has to keep in mind something very important. And what is that? It is nothing but the factors influencing such recruitment, which is what we're going to see next. Yes, these are the influencing factors. Again, like I said, these are not exhaustive, these are just 5 I've picked. So, beginning. I'm really sorry for that. Yes. So the first one, size of the organization. You could understand that every organization is not the same. So you could say that Reliance is there on one hand and there is a small company who's just trying to pick up right now. You could call it a startup. Now for a startup company, I don't think you would probably be employing more than 50 to 100 employees if it's just a startup who's picking up good. But for a company like Reliance, it has employees in numbers of lakhs, which is a lot. So if you are a company like Reliance and that is your size of your organization, there is a lot of people who is thinking that they are going to be working for you. So that also means that if you have a large number of employees, it's going to cost you more. It's going to involve a lot of work for the company to actually go and look out for people and recruit them. It could also be on the other side for a small company who's just about to start. For them, it could be a problem of funding. So it all depends on one thing, definitely, which is the size of the organization. The next thing is the working condition. The working condition is also sometimes very important for a company. You could see a company is not always called a very good company for a very long time. Any company is always at a stage of growth. It could be beginning, it could be growing, it could be mature, and it could be declining. That clearly depends upon the market. Now for a company which is just growing, which I previously mentioned, a startup, for that company they are obviously trying to look out for more skilled people or people who are actually willing to come give in to their idea and make the best use of such employment. So unless and until you are at a very good stage of a working condition, that is if you're not at a declining condition, you are at a good shot of this. Otherwise, it's a very bad influencing factor for your recruitment process. Image and reputation of the employer. This is something which is supposed to be very important if I am to be seeing from the perspective of a person who's recruiting. Let me tell you why. Now, I don't know if many of you know this, but a year ago back, one of the big 4 companies, I think it was KPMG, I could be wrong, I'm not sure, KPMG was involved in a case scandal because of which one of their partner firms had involved into some kind of mishandling or some sort of falsifying of some documents, because of which it ended up in a big scandal and there was case filed up against the company. Now, of course, if something like this is coming up, there are going to be people who are going to talk about it and look into what's the matter about. So if you are found defaulting, it is basically a bad image for your reputation. So in that scenario, you are not likely to have any people or very few people who actually think that they want to come work for you. So in that kind of a scenario, it becomes kind of a bad remark for the company itself. Cost of recruitment. Like I mentioned earlier, if it's a company which is very big, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. Like I said, Reliance, they are obviously backed by well-funded owners and capital. Now for a company like that, probably the cost of recruitment may not be much of a problem. But if you see for a startup, if they don't deploy the proper means of recruiting people, this might turn out to be a bad thing, because for a startup, I don't think they have the proper amount of capital, because they are actually a startup. And if you don't have the proper funding, you might just look back on thinking about recruiting people. Maybe a hindrance sometimes. And the final thing is environmental factors. So like I said before, marketing conditions are something very, very important. Now you could just see the same thing right now. We are in a pandemic situation where everybody is down, the market is down. Now if I was to take the situation of the automobile industry, I don't think there are people outside. So with no people outside, I don't think there are anybody who's willing to buy a car. So it is a state of sorry for the automobile industry, but you could say that this is a good thing or a bad thing. Like I mentioned earlier, nothing is always prolonging for a very long time. There is always upward and downward curve. So in that scenario, depending upon the environmental factors, a company could have a good omen in terms of trying to recruit people, and it could turn out to be a bad thing. So considering all these factors, sometimes the recruitment process is always touched down by companies thinking that this might go well and this might not go well. So you should always have to consider these if you are a person who's actually going to recruit, or a person in the HR department who thinks about these things. So with that was the conclusion of what I was going to give an insight about you on the topic of recruitment. So I'd like to thank each and everyone who had taken their very own time, and I'm very thankful again, like I said, to Dr. Arif sir for giving me this opportunity of presenting my own insight about this, and I really hope that there was at least an inkling of a bit of knowledge that I was able to impart to you, and it was really helpful. And again, like I said earlier, if there is something on my path that I may have mistaken, my facts or any of my vocabulary, I'm really sorry and I duly apologize for that. And I'd really be happy and encouraged to know your comments and tell me if this is something where I went wrong, if this is something I could have done. And I hope I reached the expectations of my teacher with this seminar of my own. Stay home, stay safe.